Share the screen. Caroline, just a little bit too far away from
Yeah, you don't need Vince and Tom and I on there. That's okay. It's really serious.
It's just about it. He's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just some guy.
Right. That's cool.
That's just some guy.
Yeah.
All right, at 6 o'clock, Safety and Development Committee meeting will come to order. All members are present with the exception of Alderman Tenorio, who is excused. This time I'll turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Alderman Weiss. So thanks for being here this evening. We're here to discuss some changes that have been shared with planning. At the last council meeting, public hearing, there were a couple of concerns that were mentioned with respect to home-based businesses, as well as the small cafes or restaurants. We want to go over some of the changes that you've seen already and some others that we're perhaps maybe still working on that are still fluid. Now, everything's fluid at this point, but we're really here just to listen to what you have based on the comments you've made, and if there's any other changes that you see fit, tonight's a good night to bring that up. The schedule moving ahead would be we want to get a recommendation on tonight's meeting on the changes. That way, that motion that gets passed along to the Common Council, back to the Common or to the Planning Commission, and then ultimately to the Common Council on May 3rd for public hearing. With that, I'll turn it over to Zach. He'll take it away.
All right. So the first topic we'd like to cover tonight is home-based businesses. This is the kind of main kind of impetus for us coming to this and looking at the zoning code again. So just some background and a reminder. In the new zoning code, there'll be two types of what formerly were home occupations, home offices, and home-based businesses. So home offices are the accessory use of a dwelling to carry an occupation where clients do not meet at the dwelling and no packages are sent out from the dwelling. So these are your simple home offices that everybody's been doing during the pandemic. This is not what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about home-based businesses, which are any other business, essentially anything where a client is coming to the site or there's packages and stuff being sent from the site.
Sorry about
that. So we're going to be reviewing three options today for regulations for home-based businesses. Kind of moving from we'll start with the least restrictive, which is what was originally proposed, and then we'll move through two options, two more options which we've developed, progressively getting more restrictive. So a recap, as originally proposed, home-based businesses would be a limited use in any district where a residential unit's allowed. So they'd be permitted only in 1 or 2 unit dwellings in all of the residential districts, all the commercial districts, and our M1 district. Those are all areas where 1 or 2 unit dwellings are allowed. Many of those are being, only if that certain lot was platted before a certain date, but that's where those kind of homes could be. So originally the intent was to allow them anywhere where those kind of homes could be. Then they would be regulated further by this set of regulations, which would be found in section 19.37. So any person operating these home businesses would have to comply with these following regulations. Now let's run through quick, just so we're all on the same page. First, they must obtain a home business permit, and this would not include an inspection. Our building inspections department does not think that's feasible, but they would still have to go through that permitting process. The sales or services on the premises would be conducted by appointment only. No more than one client could be on the premises at any time. No appointments should occur during the nuisance hours between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. The business shall be conducted solely within the principal building or an accessory building, so it can't be outside. The business cannot utilize a shipping service from the dwelling unit. The business cannot employ any person who does not reside on that premises, so somebody have to live there to work there. The business the business that's taking place in the principal building cannot use more than 25% of that floor area, so you can't just take over the whole home for the business. And then no vehicle should be used in connection with the business unless it's legally allowed in that residential district and on that to be parked on that premises. So this was the original set of regulations that we developed. The first option to increase the restrictions has a few tweaks to this. This would still allow home-based businesses in the same districts as before, but there'd be some kind of additional restrictions that it would have to meet. So first off, this would be for these residential districts only. This would not be for those commercial districts in which, you know, kind of commercial business can already locate. So these kind of additional restrictions wouldn't necessarily apply. In the big changes here, there's really threefold. First off, no more than one client may be on the premises, and no more than 4 clients total may enter the premises per day. So this would really limit the amount of people that could, you know, use that business, and in some ways kind of may make that business be more of a part-time endeavor for somebody rather than a full-time endeavor. If it's, you can only have 4 clients a day, that's going to limit how much that can really be operating. No appointments shall occur between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. So this is a 2 hours more on each side that it can't operate. So originally, the original proposal was between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. It's 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. So a little bit more time that they cannot operate that business. And then the last section, the last one here is an addition highlighted on the bottom. The home-based business may not be any activity licensed by the state of Wisconsin. So this, maybe we have a list here. Oh, we're past it. So this is just pulled, it's hard to read, but this is pulled from the state statutes. These are the businesses or the, occupations that are licensed by the state. This would mean that if they're operating a business where people have to come to the site, they would not be allowed to do a home business there. So some things that may impact are accountants. I know some people during tax season, they'll have accountants where people, you know, come to their site to help them do their taxes or whatever. That would not be allowed. It would also not allow a variety of kind of like medical type practices like dentists or let's see what else, acupuncturists, those kind of things, which may not be allowed already. Psychologists could be another thing that, you know, could in theory have clients coming to their house to do that. Real estate agents couldn't have clients come to their site. Yeah.
Zach, what about auto repair? That's not allowed currently anyhow.
Yeah.
Tell me about that, please.
Okay, so the correct me if I'm wrong, but an auto repair, I don't believe that is a licensed occupation.
It's not licensed there,
So
but
it
we
would-
don't allow people to repair vehicles.
Yeah, and so
by our code as period, right?
yeah,
Which we've had a discussion over making that a little more reasonable, but so the proposal would not change that. You still the law in the city of West Dallas would be that you cannot repair a vehicle at a residence. Correct.
then just a few other ones I wanted to highlight here on this list are barbering and cosmetology. I know that was one thing that was brought up specifically. That's a licensed occupation that they could not have clients coming to the site as well. Same with like body art, tanning, massage therapy. So there's a variety of these occupations that would be restricted through this regulation.
So Zach, you mentioned real estate agents.
Yeah.
Haven't had to hire a real estate agent. I would think that a lot of them.
And so that's where this distinction gets a little bit nuanced here. If you're a real estate agent, you can work out of your home as long as you don't have clients coming to your home or shipping stuff from the home. So if they meet the qualifications for home office, they'd be considered a home office use. And then these home-based businesses things would.
So you could have an occupation that's licensed.
Yeah.
As long as none of your clients are coming home, you're not even checking those other ones.
Yes, that's correct.
How does this affect home daycare?
That would be regulated separately. We would have there's a different use called it's called I think it's home daycare essentially. It's considered a separate use that's separated out from the home-based businesses. So that kind of is also more regulated by the state than by us. So we can have that. We have that written into our code, but it's a separate distinction. And yeah, it would be up to 8 kids. They don't allow more than 8 kids.
Right. And then my other question is, how does this affect businesses like, say, people who sell Mary Kay or party light candles or any of that type of stuff? Or how does that affect
So
that?
those would be allowed, but again, going back to these they'd have to meet these regulations. So they could not have more than 4 clients in the entire day.
So it fall under this one.
And so it would fall under this stuff, so they just have to meet these regulations to still be allowed.
I have some questions.
Yeah.
I should ask an optometry question, but I couldn't see the list. Is barbering up there?
Yes, barbering is up there.
So that is permitted or is not?
That would not be permitted because as a home-based business, because it's one of those licensed occupations by the
Okay.
state, so that would not be allowed.
And then, maybe I'm skipping ahead here, but what is the enforcement mechanism?
And this is something that's going to be difficult regardless. We don't really have a lot of the enforcement capacity it's something that we would maybe hear from through, we've noticed some things online, but it's very hard to distinguish whether somebody's coming to a house for residential purposes or for commercial purposes. So that's something that's going to be, regardless of how we write this ordinance, it's going to be very difficult for us to enforce.
It's like spot checks.
If I may, oh, go ahead, go ahead. Dana's gonna explain after you.
Okay, and then Kayla just wanted to mention too that enforcement would be more like a spot check type thing where we would go at a certain time and see whether they're meeting these regulations. So some of these things too, where no more than 4 clients per day, that's something that's going to be difficult for us to actually enforce. Where the no more than 1 client on the premises at any time, that's something that's we're more able to enforce because we can go there at the time and see whether they have multiple clients there or not.
Neighbors complaining to or calling the city to, their testimony helps us find out what the
Neighbors watch, right?
Yeah.
It's all on cameras.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Alderwoman Keene, were you going to assist me?
No, go ahead.
Okay,
Do you have a list of the ones that are permitted?
so
You have a list of
so
the
that's
ones
a-
that aren't. permitted.
yeah, that's a change is that we're going to be moving towards this. We'll have these regulations they can meet, and then there's that list of licensed occupations that would not be allowed. But we do not have a specific list of there's not like, we aren't going to just list out 6 occupations that are permitted. We're going to instead look at what regulations do they have to meet, and then we'll have these specific ones we call out. Like we said,
You have examples, here's an example.
Lawyer, that's not on that list.
yeah,
We have a different set of regulations.
yeah, and like I think Alderman Stefanski, I think mentioned like Mary Kay, like if you're doing sales for beauty products or something like that, you can have people come over to your house and you that would be considered home-based business. However, you'd have to kind of meet these regulations we have.
Music lessons might be.
Yeah, piano teacher is a good example of a home-based business where they have people coming to their site, into their house to take their music lessons, but then again, so.
They need to bring out follow or switch off if they do it full time.
Yeah, and so this would say that in West Dallas, a music teacher cannot have more than 4 clients a day. So that would be pretty restrictive.
Well, I think
Do we have any idea how much we're gonna cost, the permits are gonna cost at all?
They're based on the current home occupancy fee. I think it's around $200. I think it's whatever the building inspection charges for their occupancy permit now.
So will they be different fees, permits, I'm sorry, I have dentist appointment, and my mouth is half dead, but anyway. Well, different. Different occupations have different fees.
No, it's a flat rate. So if you
Flat
apply
rate.
for a home business, it's the flat rate fee. And then the conditions would apply based on what they tell us in their permit application.
Thank you.
I'd like to talk a little bit about cosmetologists, the fact that it's like cosmetologists really, but the state statute already, the laws are in place, in reference of, if you want to open up a beauty shop or barber shop, you still get the state license. But the fact that is today, the state doesn't really supervise any local business, like a beauty shop, barber shop, they don't. I mean, years ago, I remember they used to come every 4 or 5 months to inspect beauty shop, the sanitary, the genetic portion of the business, but today you never see them anymore. There's no such things anymore. So the laws are there, you cannot really practice. in a house, you know, I mean, you cannot do cutting hair. I mean, myself, if I do my brother relative haircut, well, that's a big deal. But the fact is, there is rules out there already, but those rules are just on the west side. I mean, and I use
Analyze
them
it.
at all.
If I may, that was one of the reasons that Dana and I brought this forward, and I had called Kale and worked with planning on this. We are regulated by the state, and with that being said, there is an issue between what the state requires and what we require as a city. So say, for example, we permit barbers and cosmetologists to practice at home. That does not recuse you from the fact that you have to get an establishment license. And there's a strict criteria in meeting that establishment license from the state. And the two are separate. So if we're going to say that that's allowed, we're also taking on the responsibility of the oversight, in my opinion, that they're meeting that criteria of what the state is requiring as well. We can say, oh no, well, because it's going on behind closed doors, it's fine, they can self-regulate, but it's not an industry in which should be self-regulated. That's one thing, especially when it comes to safety, sanitation, anything like that, anything that our departments have to go in routinely or approved to begin with shouldn't be allowed in the home without any watch on it. So I had suggested with Dana and I looked at this, and that's how we came up with one of these options, you know, and I'll just let Dana speak to the rest of it. But just for clarity, the state of Wisconsin does allow you now to cut hair out of the home. That was changed in 2017 by Governor Walker. It used to be that we could not. But the that's what you still have certain requirements that you have to have chemical storage. You have to have separate space for a sink. It's not like maybe what we're saying, oh, I have my sister come over and I cut her hair in the kitchen. This is a viable business like I'm running out of my salon that you're setting up. You have 1,000 square foot house, condo, 2 units, whatever the case is. You can have 250 square feet, which is a room in that house, and you can fully set it up like a business as if you're renting a station within a business in a brick and mortar. So if we're not having that ability to have oversight on that in a home, then I don't think we should be allowing it.
Yes, I agree with you. The fact, first of all, it doesn't because you're a barber licensing. Well, if you're a journeyman, you cannot operate a business.
Right.
You can't. If you're a master, you cannot operate a business yourself. You have to be a manager. You have to have a manager license to run a beauty shop or a barber shop. You need a cosmetologist licensing from the state. So to me, I mean, Walker, I mean, he had nothing else to do besides.
Well,
really.
that's a whole nother conversation.
I
I think
that's besides the point, but just the idea, it's ridiculous, really, to allow somebody doing business, as barbering, which to me is more sanitary than anything else, really, to allow somebody to go to the house and do 5, 6, 10 customers per day. To me, was not appropriate for changing that.
Well, this will change that.
Go ahead.
So that's it.
Yeah.
And Kale, if we have this happen, what kind of repercussions people have against us because we're not joined with the state law?
So the city wouldn't have a legal obligation. The zoning law is entirely separate, totally fine. But it's not more a legal obligation, it's a moral obligation, I guess. The city says we don't want to create confusion by allowing something zoning the state would give it. So you can take that on. You can ban this business just to prevent the confusion. But if we allow it to happen in the home, the state allows that. Anything. And if they did so and didn't get a license, the city would face liability for that legally. But I think the concept more is this moral liability, this like ethical obligation to make sure we don't send the wrong message. That's how I interpret it.
So if somebody wants to do haircuts at their home, which they can do legally by the state, does that cause a problem for the city if we ban it?
No.
So they can't come and say, I'm suing the city of West Dallas because you won't let me have a business here. What the state does.
No, the state does not. It allows you to have a home, but it does not say you shall be permitted to have a home on all the circumstances. It's an authority of the city through zoning, not a Right.
Thanks.
And if I may just add to it, one of the reasons was we put this in as an option for all professions is because look at what we say, well, an accountant can do it, but a barber shouldn't be able to do it. This just kind of keeps it tidy. You know, what we can and what we can't do. Accountants aren't going to really be affected by it because it can still be a home office. But the ones that we really shouldn't be allowing will at least fit in that category.
Next question is, what do we do about people who already have a, are they grandfathered in?
Yes, because it's a non-conforming use.
Ones that are permanent.
Yeah.
Yes, legal non-conforming.
So like if you have a person that's an FFL license and they can do stuff on their home. That would not, that they already have it, so they're grandfathered in.
Any lawful use as of the date of adoption. So it's a non-conforming use.
Okay.
All right, so I'd like to move on to the third option, which is a more restrictive version of this as well. So we had option one, which is this as we originally proposed it. Then there's option two, which is what we've just been discussing with those additional limitations, primarily centered around the number of people that can be on the premises during the day and the different licensed occupations that cannot be allowed as a home-based business. This third option would eliminate home-based businesses entirely from our residential districts. And this would essentially just be keeping them as a limited use in commercial districts. We kind of remove those regulations as they already are in commercial districts and can operate similar to how commercial properties can operate. But we would just be not allowing any home-based businesses in any of the residential districts. That's essentially this third option. So it's more restrictive than the last option because they would not be allowed at all.
So just to kind of bring it up again, the suggestions of the second option was more so to regulate the amount of traffic. You know, we had it where you can only have one person, but someone arrives 10 minutes early to their appointment, they're waiting out in their car while someone's still inside. Now you have a car running, and then you could have that every hour. So the point of this, and I'll steal someone's phrase, is it's not anti-business, it's pro-residents. To not have people coming in and out. Now, again, also, my personal opinion is it should just be removed because it can't be followed up on. It can't be, all the guidelines in there can't be enforced because we can't micromanage that. You know, yes, a neighbor might say, hey, I see people coming in and out all the time, but I'll prove, what do? We can't sit and, you know, spy on someone. I mean, we could, but the resources might not allow it. So my personal opinion was with adding this third option, Suzette's, is we can't monitor it. Maybe we shouldn't be allowing it. And I feel that while I get COVID's kind of over, that we have, look across the street, there's a vacant store lot there. You know, we have so many programs to offer new businesses. So maybe instead of promoting, do it from your home, we more so promote, you have your business, again, an accountant, maybe someone does stop over and drops off their taxes. Someone really call in to say, oh, someone came over and I think there was an envelope that contained taxes, and that's, no, the nuisance ones will clearly be called in. The real estate agent who might have one person stop over, again, even two people in a day, it's not going to cause a rift in the neighborhood or a commotion or waves. Whereas us promoting more storefronts is, again, tax revenue. It's filling these blighted vacant properties. It's, you know, so I think more so we should promote the programs we have for business owners and promoting, can you maybe do it out of your home? And that's just our take on it. I don't know if you had anything.
I do have something to add to that. It went right out the other year ago. COVID has been brought up a lot, and the way we do business has changed. But I just need to clarify with people, like my daughter works from her home now. Would that be a home office per se? She's being employed by someone else. So it's not like she's operating her own business. It's a clear difference between working from home and having a home-based business. So just food for thought, if anybody thought of that, because that's really what the excuse behind a lot of these businesses opening now are saying, well, because of COVID. But yet none of us can hire anybody. You know, there's nobody to waitress or otherwise. I know they're not waitressing at home, but for example, but still the same. There's vacant storefronts like Dana had mentioned.
I agree. For sure. Many people are working from home today on a regular basis. I'm one of them, and Dana is. Tracy is. I mean, this is just the norm today. You people do a lot from home, so that's the norm. And I want to make sure that nothing that we do makes that illegal. And I agree with the comments Alderwoman Grisham made that, you know, because you're working for someone else and you're just using your computer at home, there's no one coming in to see me on a regular basis. I'm working in my office by myself. I think that should certainly be recognized and be a legal occupation or a thing to do within our statutes. What I don't like is the businesses where you have people coming to your house to conduct business. And I was just thinking about dog grooming. How is that addressed? I mean, I don't think dog groomers are licensed, are they?
No. And that would be an example of one that under option 2, they would have to meet this set of regulations in order to be allowed. However, there's that difficulty of it's difficult for us to enforce that. So it's, yeah, that would be something that would be allowed. They'd have to meet those requirements, but it could be difficult.
Because that seems to be a popular home business these days. I've had several of them in the Fourth District, people that wanted to open up and building inspection turned them down. But you know, I think that's something that I don't want to see proliferate. There's a place for dog grooming, and you know, if you're doing one or something, that's one thing. When you got a regular business out of your home, go across the street, open up.
Alderman Lysick, may I add one final point in? Dan and I had discussed this too. Being we're opening up and we revamped this zoning code, this was something that actually I reached out to Kale about doing prior to this even, the zoning code being redone. So I was going to bring this forward in the first place. But what I see as a problem that could be more problematic is as we are revamping this, I think we're almost promoting businesses to take place in the house. I know we're doing regulations, but how are we not incentivizing it, so to speak? I have a 4-chair salon with 3 chairs vacant. Why am I open? If you change this, I can take one of my rooms in my house and I can change it into my private salon with no overhead whatsoever, not contributing to the community in any way, shape, or form. And here you have another vacant storefront on 70th. And I can guarantee you a lot others are going to do that. So that's just kind of the final thought I have.
I'd also just like to reiterate too that the home office would be permitted under all of these. That's separate. So I believe you had that distinction. I just wanted to make clear for everybody else that the home office use would be allowed as a permitted use in residential. Yeah, and that's a good distinction too. It's whether you own your business or are an employee of someone else. If you don't have any clients coming to your site, you can still operate.
Be a W-2 or?
Right.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman,
I gotta say, in some respects, it feels like we're protecting the blacksmith's office when the automobile came along. I think if cultural trends are changing, some people are willing to offer a service for their home, do it in a safe, non-impactful way in their neighborhood, which is what we're talking about. And if enough of their clients or customers prefer to do business that way, I'm putting on my libertarian hat here. Why is it our job to stop them? That, I think there's 3 vacancies in downtown right now out of 120 spaces. So don't point to the downtown as having a lot of spots. I know there's been a sea change in the commercial retail market, okay? Before COVID, everybody's looking at repurposing retail, repurposing office. I don't think it's our job to protect business models that may be fading. I guess I'm not in favor of that third option. I would support the second option. I like the idea. I think most of these home kind of businesses would be like an hour appointment. I'm gonna guess haircut lasts an hour. I'm gonna guess a dog room is Is a dog groom an hour?
Yeah.
Big dog, little dog.
About a half an
so-
hour each.
Okay, but if we're saying no more than 4 customers per day, we're keeping them to 4 customers. And again, enforcement's gonna be a problem. Okay, we pass laws all the time that we don't enforce.
Doesn't make it right.
Doesn't make it right. We have speed limits that can look the other way constantly. But when it does become a problem for the neighborhood, I think, so my question is, what are the penalties? Okay, so if, it's one thing to say, well, we're gonna, what if we catch you with more than 4 clients, or 4 in a day, or more than 1 client at a time? We need a hammer that sends a message, says that if we're gonna do something like this, that it's gonna be serious. What are the penalties on things like this?
So there are two major ways of doing it. One is a $500 per day forfeiture, so it's up to 525. The second one's any injunction from circuit courts, which would then, if someone violates that injunction, put them in contempt of course, they go to jail. So there are some significant consequences if we choose to go that route.
Would the permit be pulled?
We could pull a permit.
We could
as
pull a
well,
permit. I'd imagine a permit would be revocable
but it would- I mean,
or suspendable or
It would have to be revocable for that, but the main thing is just like speed limits, if you're having 4, maybe come over, or maybe 5 occasionally, just like if you're driving 35 or 30, enforcement probably isn't gonna happen, but just like speed limits, if you're going 55 down Greenfield, or if you have 10 people coming in, it's gonna be the case. That's really the focus of. So as long as people stay 4 or less, or 5 on a day, that's not gonna necessarily prompt action. What's gonna prompt action is a regular use of that.
Yeah, 4 in a day for an hour at a time for these that's a part-time job. Okay, they're not quitting their day job. Their business would not, I don't think, support renting a storefront. Right? If you only have 4
Agreed.
clients a day, could you rent a storefront?
No.
Could you rent a chair from you?
I could.
But will like a dog grooming place make it on 4
No.
clients a day? No. So,
Do we have to write those restrictions with this, or does that come after? Do we set those restrictions, like if,
we're writing those tonight.
yeah, that's what I mean, we would write whatever we chose, if we chose option 2, then we would also lay out what those penalties would be for not adhering. Correct?
There are general penalties already applicable for any zoning code violation. Whatever the restrictions are, would become new regulations, any violation already covered. That's right.
And if I may add, Marty, if there were 4 women that came to my home to get their hair colored in a day, that would equate to $600 a day. My chair rentals go for $300 a month. So yes, you can't rent a chair for a lot less within a brick and mortar.
Well,
That's
then why
already
wouldn't
rented.
that person rent a chair?
Because they have no overhead whatsoever, doing 4 haircuts at $600 a day in their own home.
Cash money.
It's cash money.
Years ago, and even
That's why
up
Well, do we need to
until
make, is this
pre-pandemic-
specifically a hair cutting issue?
No.
Cosmetology?
No,
No, but it gives an example what people could do if it's a high traffic. That, I'm not looking to not have people have home-based businesses. I would rather see it regulated if we can regulate it. If we don't have the resources within our own system to regulate it, then it's just it's a free food law that is, people are gonna do what they want.
I agree.
So
And
it's not worth the ink that,
So
It's
since we
written on the
can't
paper.
enforce it, we shouldn't pass a law.
no, if we
No,
can't
Enforce
enforce
it, we
it,
shouldn't allow it at all.
yeah,
that's
So if
when.
we can't manage it, we
Yeah.
should ban it. Is that what we're saying? If we can't manage it, we should ban it? That's not how I look.
And Mr. Chair,
Mr. Chair,
yeah, and yeah, I'm gonna follow up on what Alderman Weigel is saying. I agree, option 2 seems to be the Goldilocks zone, just right in my mind. I think it's important from the standpoint of freedom and the amount of government regulation on people. And, yeah, right. Certainly with these restrictions, yeah, we're saying that you can't be a full-time business, that if you want to do this part-time, that's okay. I think that's where a lot of people are. Option 2 sounds good.
Mr. Chair, I do agree just as well with Mario based on his statements. To me, I think, again, it's pretty hard, I think, for the city really to have somebody oversee that, I mean, it's gonna be a hard task, really.
Yeah, they already said they
It's
can't.
very hard
Right.
to ask for the city. to
It is.
follow.
And that's my problem with that,
You know,
because I don't see us enforcing it.
Yeah.
I don't see any enforcement on this.
And again, Alderman Lysick, let me tell you what else we don't enforce. Auto maintenance,
I know.
in a residential area. Dog poop must be picked up within 24 hours.
From your
Look at my
trees.
backyard. Yeah, right. So, I mean, we're being practical here. I think that we understand that if there are, it'd be complaint based. And if there are complaints, we'd be looking at what are the neighbors saying? And we would primarily go to what the neighbors are identifying for evidence of an issue, and our staff would follow up appropriately. Just like with auto repair, just like with cleanup dog poop, and then it gets cleaned up, the dog poop does, and they would fine.
So what's the consensus?
So I
2 or
guess,
3?
well, I have no problem with either one, to be honest with you. I could vote for either one. I'm concerned about the person that starts at their home and suddenly it's 3 clients a day, then 4, then 5, then 6. And now what happens? You come down on them with $500 fine. What's that do?
It's 500 a day.
500 a day.
I know. That puts them out of business.
Well, there'd be a warning, I imagine, first.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at. If someone is starting a business in their home, they're not looking to stay there. Most people are looking to grow their business and make more money.
Hopefully, right.
And they're gonna end up needing a commercial place if they're successful. So how do we transition them from their home to a commercial entity?
So the most common way of doing it would be to issue an order. Sometimes it's just an oral order. Hey, you have to do that. Sometimes it's actually a written order saying cease this, execute a citation. Depends on the enforcement official at the time. Either one is typically the first step. And at that point in time, the person asks, well, what I want to do dog work, why can't I do it at home? I have clients lining up. At that point in time, I'm hoping things will refer those folks to development, planning to have them look at a storefront, get a business.
Mr. Chair?
Okay, as long as there's some kind of mechanism in place to help transition people from their homes to a commercial building where it exists and is welcome, I have no problem.
I was just gonna add one item is, yeah, I agree with that. So, verbal, obviously, if they're gonna complain that they're getting 6 or 7, we help transition. Maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea, I don't know if this would be the clerks or where this would fall, that those who actually apply for the permit, now let's be realistic, how many people are really gonna apply for it? That maybe after a year and a half, we maybe create a packet to say, did you know, here's grant programs, here's these programs to help you get into a storefront, and we kind of dangle the carrot as something to work towards. Now they're going, man, I am getting busy. This is feasible for me. I could actually legit do this. And we kind of help be the Kickstarter to say, did you know, we know you have a business permit. We'd like to see you grow your business. Here's some city options. If it's ever the time, let us know. And we kind of maybe do a little campaign with those.
I think from our staff perspective, one thing we could do is when we issue the permit, we do this for like planning commission items, we'll set a reminder, a follow-up reminder after schedule on our calendars for 6 months out. We could schedule something 1 year out, and we could work with economic development to get some sort of just like a basic information packet
Yeah,
about some of these
FAQ.
grant programs, so we could just share it with the applicants even through their email or
Yeah,
over the phone.
happy anniversary,
Yeah.
Did you know?
Mr. Chair. It seemed to me that if we had actually an estimate, how many people really doing business, but we don't. Really, I don't think there's such statistics that we can go by with. We don't. That's the unknown. The fact stands, like I hear that there's a lot of people. This lady, she worked for Harley Davidson across the street from me, from the alley, and she does right now work from home. Like I was talking before. So she does on a computer, but of course she don't have visitors.
visitors, that's the
Yeah,
thing.
No visitors, you know.
So
So I
So I-
that would be allowed as a permitted
Yeah.
use as a home office.
Yes, so if I could talk a little bit about, always sit back of my head about when the gun shop was located, they located by Longfellow School. The federal government, they have their own laws and we can't do much about it. But the fact is the gun shop is in a location, first across the school, then there's residential upstairs, which should never have been allowed this type of business in a residential living upstairs, two families, and next door is a duplex, should never have been allowed. So there's something we could adding on this to apply in the future, that in a business district, they could go to say Plaza here at Greenfield Avenue, that's fine. But why they can go to a residential neighborhood across from a school and people living upstairs, they have a gun shop? See, that's
We have
something
no
I think.
control over that.
Well,
Not even here, we can't get a grip on it.
We can't.
No,
Yeah, I
just
know,
can't.
that's the
federal
thing,
government.
I mean, why would they have no grip
And
to
doesn't,
tell we cannot go there, I mean, it's a federal laws, to me, it's a bunch of crap anyway.
your congresswoman.
Mr. Chair,
So,
Mr. Chair, back to this topic. On enforcement, clients at a time or number of clients in a day. A lot of restaurants use online reservation systems.
Mhm.
Do dog groomers and in-home based use those also?
I know dog groomers do.
Okay, so that would be an enforcement mechanism where if there's a complaint, somebody from our enforcement side goes to the dog groomer's website and says, I see you're taking dog grooming for 10 PM, or I see
Yeah.
you're taking, you have slots open all day long, or 5 slots are filled today already for, you're only supposed to have 4 clients a day. So there may be an enforcement mechanism there.
Marty, I'm sure that there's a ton of these places already existing.
Already existing phone call or a
Yeah.
text, I understand.
Nobody's having problems with them.
And the
Not a
reason we
big
want
issue.
to regulate them is to stop them from being a problem.
Yes.
And so if they're existing and they're not a problem, then I'd say they're not a problem.
Agreed. Because we don't know
Yeah.
about it now, so
Yeah.
just keep doing your thing, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think, at this point, do we vote? Do we, majority, does they want to go with 2
We'll
or
take a
3?
poll.
Sure, okay.
Number 2.
Number 2.
Yeah, I'll go with 2.
All right,
So
so that's a
everybody-
majority right there.
That's-
I got it.
Okay, then number 1, just for so we know, for the record, is for number 1.
No,
Not
so
that's for the
what's that?
record. Nobody's- Sorry, number 3, number 3.
Sorry.
Three's gone.
All right.
We're going
Number
with 2.
3,
We're
number
going with
okay.
2 is the majority.
2,
So we have
two unanimous, 2.
Two's the
Yeah.
majority.
Right.
So now should we talk about, since 2 is selected, what we would want as, I personally think, to Gail's point, a $500 fine, first one verbal. Obviously, after that, then enforcement and pulling up the permit
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah, Dana, that's already part of the code, but that's not something that
So
we're
we don't have to
addressing
do
right
anything
now,
then?
so.
Oh, there we go.
But if you don't like it, you can bring something forward sometime
Oh,
later.
that's already how
And
it
it's,
is. then,
if I
yeah.
understand correctly, it's up to $500 a
It's
day,
not broke
but I guess
down.
that's gonna be up to hanging Judge Paul Murphy, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm gonna roll.
And who gets the $500 fine?
The neighbor.
I guess what I'm getting at is,
Crime
what if
Stoppers,
we-
call it in.
what if it's a duplex and it's intended to be?
Property owner.
Yeah,
It still goes to the.
well, I mean,
Listen to the quiet guy.
Property owner or the operator, that's how it would work right now, so.
yeah.
That would help with enforcement
It would
on that side of it.
depend on the circumstances, but it could go to either.
All right.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to see something, at least, it doesn't have to be in the ordinance, but something in our procedures that if we're sending out notices to somebody for this, that there's a referral to development department to start working with these people, to find them a commercial location
Yes.
in West Dallas.
Well,
Yeah.
unless we don't want to.
Yeah.
Waukesha's got something.
Right. Here on 125th Street, they have,
Those are private.
No.
There's no one I
By the way, it's just across the street, the old cell phone store, that's gonna be a barber shop.
I think so, it's an empty lot here anymore.
Still a lot of barbers.
Yeah, and they
That
plant
corner one
rockets.
is gonna be?
Yeah, they plant
Oh,
rockets.
that's great.
So, yeah.
Yep. Unfortunately, that's
Yeah, that seems to be the ongoing trend of our
Yeah. Sure. There's two right on second and that one on
I think one of them's gone, but yeah. She's becoming more diverse. Sometimes.
now, of course, not.
Let's going back to that nineties trend.
Oh, Gail, the Bluetooth maybe
Yeah.
acting up.
My nephew got designed in this area.
Lightning bolt. Yeah, I was laughing.
But it's just-
Oh, you thought he was like
Lightning bolt.
amazing.
I was like, I haven't done this since '90s. Yeah.
No, I-
Yeah, the little lyrics.
Yeah.
He has
Oh,
all those
right.
there, and it's
There you
just-
That's what you were doing, right?
Into my house.
Get a hat.
Just like no one.
No, no, you don't have to do that. You need to make sure that his hair was done.
What, are you changing the code right now? What's?
Yeah, they're gonna.
Oh, that's
as-
awesome.
As amended.
Ordinance on the fly.
Yeah.
Wow. Wait a minute, we haven't voted on this yet. People are reinforcing a code we haven't.
Yeah, we're
passed
doing
yet?
it right now.
This is not in the actual
Okay.
code. This is in the, for the proposal.
For the public hearing.
Okay,
Yeah,
this is a
it'll be
draft.
showing the.
Okay, so
before
there's
and
nothing
after.
else
Yeah.
that we have to do, right? Or is there-
Yeah, the other questions.
the
Other questions,
The other one was for the small restaurants, if under 2,000 square feet,
time of day use.
allowing
Oh, yeah.
them
Yeah, it
as
was-
permitted, but with the limitation of time of day.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
But that good catch, Marty. That brings another question up. I'm thinking about other businesses that might have like, remember like Midnight Madness sale? So I'm just gonna pick on shoe stores. So my shoe store has a Midnight Madness sale. And, well, I guess every
Black
shoe
Friday.
store would be in a commercial district, right?
Should, yeah, needs to be.
But what we're essentially saying is, we used to have kind of areas where we tried to cluster our 24-hour businesses. Like gas station and a 24-hour McDonald's or Taco Bell, they typically be on the 60th and National corner, you know. But now we're saying that essentially, most of our commercial, all of our commercial districts, the businesses will be able to operate any time of day. If a shoe store wanted to say, well, they're releasing this shoe in London at, noon, and it's gonna, well, that's fun. Yeah, that'd be 4 AM here. Okay, so we want to be open at 4 AM. Does anybody have a problem with that?
Not as long as it's
Laundromats, I guess, are one
all
example.
Yeah,
I mean,
laundromats.
Would be open 24
Yeah,
hours.
they're open 24 hours.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think what else, what were we talking about
It's in
recently
a
about?
commercial district. I don't see an issue with it.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
We just had the car wash issue.
Car wash, yeah, the car wash. Although, as a
Car wash is at
wash,
3 AM?
as a car wash, do we have, I forget what we had that listed as the car wash. There's a limitation of those, isn't there?
Well, the stores at Christmas, they're open.
Like
all
Black
night
Friday, right?
sometimes.
Well, I think typically, when they do that, they have to get permission depending on what their occupancy permit says. Because I know a bar in Tosa had a problem. They wanted to open at 6 AM on St. Patrick's Day. And for whatever reason, their occupancy didn't say that. So they had to go before the council and get it. That was it's a holy holiday.
As it is.
I'm just wondering if, like I said, not that we have a lot of 24-hour businesses, but I mean, there was a time when we had a lot of late third shift workers looking for something to
Oh, yes.
buy or
Yeah,
go
we don't have to
or do or
anymore.
whatever.
And that business has changed a lot.
It's all gone online, a lot of shopping kinds.
And I think that, people's habits dictate how long businesses are open.
Yeah.
Service stations and neighborhoods aren't open all night,
Right.
Their pumps might be running, it's self-pay.
Yeah.
Just, Mr.
They're
Chair,
not- they're not open.
and Marty, to your point, the car wash service is considered a conditional use in
Still
C3,
is.
C4. So I mean, you still would have the opportunity to see that before public hearing and regulate that. One other thing to think about while limiting the hours between 10 PM and 6 AM, nothing, within that range. What about on weekends? I mean, for certain businesses like a small cafe, like just trying to think of an example, maybe Catarinas, for example, or this small little
Soup Plus Two.
cafe, Soup Plus Two.
Soup Plus Two.
They want to be open to 11 p.m. on a Friday night, Saturday. An example like that. Is there any appetite for allowing maybe another hour
Midnight?
on a weekend?
Midnight on Fridays and
Yeah.
Saturdays. I don't have any
I don't see
problem
no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I would even be good with midnight.
with that. And what about? No, it's like holidays.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair. I don't have an agenda here, but are we kicking around other things or just those two items?
Just every,
Oh, okay.
yeah, but we want to hear everything.
Yeah.
We want to have this thing to bed tonight.
Yeah.
What do-
Oh,
what's the
yeah, no, I
question?
didn't want to talk about the parade or
Oh,
something.
okay.
No, I just, where are we at with the alley separating the motor vehicle repair places? Because I think that was pretty close when we did around the horn here. If I'm not mistaken.
Automobile services, so
Like, can you-
if it is
I think it-
abutting,
We determined, based on the vote, I think you guys we conducted a poll and you all voted pretty much in favor of that restriction where they can't share a direct lot line, but I think that they can share across that alley line. So it's kind of the middle. We had an option where, 20% would become legally non-conforming and one where 40% would become legally non-conforming. And that kind of middle restriction, that 20% legally non-conforming, is the one that you elected to go with, which was the that they may not directly share a lot line with a residential property. In the
But you can share an alley.
But they
Yes.
can share an alley, yes. And so I guess, as we're talking about restaurants here, you all seem to be pretty much in consensus that they can be open till 12
Fridays,
Friday,
Saturdays.
Saturdays.
until midnight on Fridays and Saturdays. Okay, we can make that tweak as well. And then I just, if we're good with this one, I just wanted to move on. There's a couple of small tweaks that our planning team, we just kind of took a additional review and we found a few things that we wanted to slightly adjust. And I think Kale also was involved in this. One thing we noticed was that the way we had written the nicotine sales part of the ordinance as originally amended, or as originally proposed, doesn't quite match the ordinance that you all passed in recent years. So the original proposal said that they cannot be located within 1,000 feet of any other of another nicotine sales use. So that's only if they're that 20% or more of their floor area. That isn't as restrictive as what you all wrote in your ordinance, which was that it should not be located within 1,000 feet of any establishment licensed to sell cigarettes. We want to just amend that to match the ordinance, the current ordinance that's in place. We noticed that this language was slightly off, and we just want to, within all these other amendments, we want to include that as well to make sure that it matches the ordinance that you passed. Assuming that is good with you all, as we want to make you aware that we caught that.
Yep, that's the Reinke ordinance.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of it
listening very
too.
carefully to that.
I guess I have a couple questions. We had examples of smaller restaurants by size. Who's 20%?
So that's the way that the tobacco.
Do you have an example?
Yeah, so for example, a gas station.
Yeah.
They typically only have their counter space is really the only space where they have cigarettes for sale.
Right.
And so they'll, on their floor plans, they show that area where that's taking place.
1%.
And we calculate the amount of square footage that's devoted to those sales compared to their whole building. That's something that we receive with the floor plans. If it's a building like, the tobacco store.
Or how about a CBD store? Because now,
CBD does not count the same. If they have tobacco or nicotine products, those would count, but CBD does not.
but, so vape shops, I think, sell both, right?
Yes.
So a vape shop is considered more than 20% because some of those cartridges have nicotine, some of them don't. We're not gonna start testing to find out which ones. They could maybe make an argument, well, we keep all the nicotine ones in this corner and it's only 17%.
It's included within the definition. So whether you're just strictly selling e-vape or one of those things, or strictly tobacco cigarettes, it's the same.
It's the same thing.
Yes.
Could you go back one slide?
Yes.
Event space theater, what,
So we called this out specifically because we were brainstorming, thinking if there's any other similar uses to a restaurant that you may want to consider having additional time restrictions for. Event spaces and theaters in our current code are separated into two types. There's one that's smaller than 5,000 square feet, one that's larger than 5,000 square feet. The smaller ones are allowed as permitted uses in the commercial districts. The larger ones are allowed as conditional uses in commercial districts. We, considering how these restaurant ones were, if you all had interest in extending similar limitations on time to event spaces, that's something you could consider as well. We just wanted to
I guess my concern is that somebody does this called outdoor event? Or is this totally enclosed event?
I think it would include like a Polly's.
What if Marty wants to have?
Well, the noise ordinance still applies after 10 PM. You can't hear it across the real boundary.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But. Can someone have live music outside?
We just have to
7
apply
days a
for
week?
the extended.
I'm not saying with a tavern license.
Yeah, he's just saying just music,
Oh.
not with alcohol.
No, so.
So like if Papa
What if-
John's wanted to
Yeah,
put a band up
yeah,
in the park.
What if they want to put a big event out there? I mean, I would think we'd want to regulate something like
Yeah.
this.
There's a special event.
I'm trying to find our definition here.
I just want to make sure we get that covered.
And we're seeing more hybrid spaces. I see breweries are doing a lot of special events now.
Yeah.
And I guess we don't regulate small breweries here much at all, us on some level, right? Not as far as the alcohol. But like I said, I see like Third Space Brewing does special events. I think West Allian does special events. There's still breweries at the core. Or we call that an event space.
So if the principal use of is a brewery, then it would be regulated according to that principal use, not these kind of like small accessories. That's how we define
Okay,
it.
then how is it regulated? West Allian wants to put a band outside.
So if they're gonna put a band outside, they'd probably be in the city.
West Allian doesn't have any
Okay,
street.
let's say they own the lot next door,
How about Oak?
Sure.
How about the new brewery? Oh,
or the new one.
Okay, so Oak wants to put a tent up and have
Yeah.
a band.
on National.
I think they have to apply for there's a special event permit process. They probably need an extension of, well, I mean,
No,
they're a brewery.
They're a brewery.
Yeah. So the brewery would be regulated, and then the outdoor extension of premise would be, when they came to us to open up their business, they'd be regulated probably in the very same manner that we went through already through a special use process.
I don't need any probably, I need a.
For the next brewery, yeah.
What's gonna happen?
So for Oak, for example, if there's gonna have someone playing acoustic guitar in the back, it's probably not gonna be, that's regulated, it's a small.
Yeah, not worried about that.
But if they have.
Worried about the Rolling Stones coming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's Rolling Stones, it's gonna be a special event, because it's gonna interfere with public transportation right away. And so there's gonna be also for a special event for that. It's basically the intensity of the act will dictate whether you need a special use permit for outdoor event.
I just wanna make sure we're protected, that
Yeah.
these places can't go, then the neighbor's gonna start screaming. We find out that we don't have anything like that covered.
Perspective right here has a slab in the back. That
Yeah.
We're gonna have beverage service and a food truck.
They would be limited by the noise ordinance itself. They would be limited by the size of the event. So if their event is too large, it would trigger a special event. But if it's normal clientele, just going out back to listen to it.
Let's make sure we have that all
Oh,
covered.
we're looking at still 10 PM cutoff. I'm thinking, because that goes into a residential
Right.
neighborhood.
Yep.
So the normal-
Yeah, also isn't as bad, at least they're out in
Yeah.
the commercial area.
Mr. Chair.
On
On the tobacco 1,000 foot, where does that go? Lot line to lot line, door to door?
Lot line to lot line.
Closest lot line, correct?
Yes. That's the closest point.
It's gonna be interesting because cigarette licenses.
No, I can't.
I know.
I can do that.
I can,
We need a-
I'll
we need a
interpret it.
cider.
They lose my voice. I had to present it on today too. I sound like 85-year-old, like a smoking vape. So the main thing though is that if there is just a second.
Cigarette.
So if the license is issued, the cigarette license is gonna come and go. And so it's gonna be a snapshot of time, which if someone wants to have nicotine sales, it's got to be at that moment in time, where are the licenses? Out 1,000 feet can't do it. They might apply again in 2 months and that license is gone because the person forfeited it. Okay, move in. Now a new 1,000-foot circle
right.
is formed.
Yes.
So
Thank you, I think.
licenses,
Same thing.
licenses will be issued relatively freely, but this primary use of nicotine sale is not going to be very common. for this reason.
Okay, is there anything else?
So as an example on that, at my restaurant, I don't currently sell cigarettes. It might behoove me to get a license.
If you just want a license, and you're only dedicated 20%,
That doesn't matter.
anyone can get those,
Okay,
but you just can't dedicate 20%.
that does the 20%. Yep. The fences.
There was two other smaller items we wanted to address too. So one this is the probably as small of a change as you can possibly get. With our definition of principal use, our original proposal had the definition stated as the primary or predominant use of a premises. And we want to amend this to say a primary or predominant use of a premises. And this is to more clearly state that there can be more than one principal use on a lot. We have lots of mixed use buildings in the city where there may be multiple tenants, and those are both like primary predominant uses of that site. So this just more clearly shows that you can't have multiple principal uses in a single property. So that's just a small change to make that more clear. And then the third small change we wanted to address was for our 1 to 2 unit dwelling. So right now, or we want to expand the limited use criteria so that if a 1 or 2 unit dwelling is in a commercial district and in a mixed use building, they can still have a 1 or 2 unit dwelling. So our original proposal, we only allowed 3 or more unit dwellings in commercial districts, and those had to have conditional use permits. But we did not allow any 1 or 2 unit dwellings. So like right now, as the code's written, Alderman Weigel, his property with the 1 unit above the business below, it wouldn't be allowed because a 1 unit dwelling couldn't be a principal use of a property, even if it has another mixed use with it.
You can have multiple principal uses.
Yeah, and because we can have multiple principal uses, we want to amend this to say that in commercial districts, 1 or 2 unit residential units can be allowed as a limited use, as long as they're with another principal use, basically. So that's just to more clearly have our mixed, to allow for those mixed uses as we have before. That's just something we noticed that isn't really the intent of what we had written, but we wanted to clarify that and more flexibility.
You don't have to move that.
Yeah, so Marty,
I got 2 years left of my term.
so that covers all of our topics. I think at this point, if you have any other items we want to address, this would be a good time to do so we can have it all ironed out so that we can send it out to our commission.
Mr. Chair.
Any questions?
Yeah, I don't know if it's in the zoning about registering rental properties. That's not in the zoning.
No, that's
I do have a question about that. Not on the agenda. Not sure.
There's no other questions? Comments? Is there a motion to adjourn then?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have one.
Aye.
Just to make sure. Next to have one committee to send this current version to the council.
Oh, okay.
Send
Oh.
the
Motion to send her
Move to approve.
amended version as stated during the safety and development
Second.
based on the votes.
Been moved and seconded to refer this item to the common council as amended.
And the plan. Plan commission first.
The council will refer to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Now a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you all.
We are adjourned.
Thanks.